Professor Marandi, we are more than delighted to see you safe after such an horrific period of more than 2 weeks. People all over the world look out for you, pray for you, and look forward to hearing your analysis of what has been happening and, crucially, what might happen next. Thanks for joining us. My takeaway is that this is not over yet. Is it yours?
As always, I agree with you, George. I don't think this is over. The Zionist regime, as long as it continues to exist, as long as it is an ethno-supremacist regime that sees the rest of humanity as subhuman, there will never be peace in this region. And they will never tolerate the people of the region standing up against this barbaric genocide and this barbaric ethnic cleansing that we're now seeing in the West Bank, taking on new dimensions. So I agree, Iran won round one, despite the blitzkrieg attack and the murder of many commanders and senior officials and the slaughter of so many innocent people, neighbors, families, children and grandchildren of these commanders and these scientists and these academics that were targeted. And it's interesting that after they had murdered all these people and their neighbors and their families, because they take out whole apartment buildings to kill one person, and Western media would glorify their actions and call it a intelligence coup, whereas it was just crude murder being carried out against people whose homes and families it was clear to everyone where they were and where they lived. But Iran regrouped, the armed forces struck back, the Iranian people, most importantly, they rallied, and the Iranians today, George, are more united than I've ever seen in my life. And it is like during the Saddam Hussein invasion, the Western-backed Saddam Hussein invasion against Iran. The unity that I see today reminds me of the unity that we saw in the 1980s.
Now, Donald Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize for stopping the war. We'll come to that in a minute. But he started the war. He started it actually before America got involved. He must have green-lighted Netanyahu's sneak attack on Iran. Indeed, having claimed it was not his war when he thought it was successful, he claimed credit for it. He claimed that they were operating as a team. We mustn't forget that point, mustn't we?
Absolutely not. I think he may probably get the Nobel Peace Prize because he is, after all, NATO's daddy. And I think also that it's becoming increasingly clear to everyone that the whole negotiation process was a deception. It was deceit. They were plotting behind the scenes to strike Iran from almost the beginning, perhaps before the beginning of the negotiations, but definitely after the U.S. suddenly shifted its negotiating position. And we all recall how the night before this murderous assault and an attack, unprovoked and illegal, that Trump said he's against war and he's against an attack. But then the day after, he came out gloating and, as you rightly pointed out, basically took credit for everything. But gradually, as things began to change and as the tide began to turn, we saw Netanyahu become increasingly desperate. And that is why Trump entered the war. But even after the U.S. attack, which, according to Western intelligence agencies, was a failure, even after that, Netanyahu's fortunes began to continue to go downhill. And he was literally begging the United States to stop the war. So the regime, alongside the United States, and with the support of the collective West, and the indifference of all these regimes in our region, every single one of them except for Yemen, Either they collaborated or they did nothing and just made statements. Despite all that, Iran defeated this coalition. Iran defeated the Israeli regime. And we saw that before the secession of I can't call it a ceasefire because Iran has not accepted a ceasefire. Before the halt in military fire, we saw that during the last 2 hours, the Iranians were hammering the Israeli regime from north to south. And as Trump admitted, the regime took a major battering. And as Bannon, as you rightly pointed out earlier, said that this was all about saving the Israeli regime because they were in serious trouble. So round one clearly goes to the people of Iran whose only sin is to support the Palestinian people since the inception of the revolution. The Iranians have been the only country honestly supporting the Palestinian people alongside Yemen after the revolution 10 years ago. That is Iran's sin. That is why Iran has been accused of human rights violations, terrorism, producing a nuclear weapon. All of these accusations are simply made up in order to help the Israeli regime to marginalize Iran and to help the regime subjugate the Palestinian people.
Some things have become clear when the pretender to the throne, the peacock throne as it once was known, stolen throne actually from India, with the jewels stolen out of it by the English and now in the crown of King Charles, but that's another set of stories. But on the peacock throne was once the Pahlavi dynasty, who were themselves pretenders. The British plucked an army sergeant, I think, and made him the first Shah, sidelining the actual traditional Persian royal family. But again, that's another story. But Pahlavi has blocked Donald Trump on Instagram and on Twitter. I'm not making this up. That would seem to indicate that his ambitions of restoration are at least now put to bed. Do you think?
Well, if he ever thought that he would ever return to Iran and to have any role in even running an elementary school, he is completely mad. He is the corrupt son of a corrupt family that stole billions of dollars of Iranian assets when fleeing the country. And he has been supporting, he and the other terror groups that the United States backs and the other groups that the United States has funded over the last few decades, all of them have supported sanctions. All of them have supported terrorism. All of them have supported war against Iran. And they think that ordinary Iranians would ever support them? They're mad. Either they're mad or the money is so good that they're willing to say anything and do anything to receive the funding from the United States. They must have been wasting those billions of dollars over the past 45 years in gambling and in corruption. Otherwise, I don't know why anyone would need to behave in such a ridiculous manner.
Now, you don't have any state secrets, and even if you did, you wouldn't impart them over the airwaves. But what do you think has happened to the Iranian nuclear material, and will it now continue, the Iranian nuclear program?
Well, if we accept Western intelligence agencies and American intelligence agencies, what they say, and accept the fact, as they put it, that the Iranian nuclear program is largely intact and that it has only been slightly damaged and set back a few months, then that shows how competent Iranian engineers are and how sophisticated the Iranian leadership is, that it is so capable of defending its key assets across the board, and how the Islamic Republic of Iran, despite this blitzkrieg, was able to regroup so quickly and defeat this ethno-supremacist regime and its allies in Washington. That aside, though, I think that the bigger defeat for Trump and for the Israeli regime is that Iran subsequently said, based on the decision made by Parliament today, that we're not going to allow the International Atomic Energy Agency into Iran anytime soon, until we're fully satisfied with the security of our nuclear assets. And that could mean forever, because as long as Iran does not feel secure, as long as Iran believes that the United States or the Israeli regime may bomb its nuclear assets, then they won't allow these people in. And it's very interesting, George. The internet, when the Israeli regime carried out this blitzkrieg and murdered women and children and bombed Iranian national radio and television, and that's also another story. We saw women presenters, both on radio and television and for children's programs, stand their ground as they were being bombed. But you never see that in the Western media. They don't call these Iranian women heroes. It's only a particular type of woman that they call heroes. Those who are those who are obedient to their masters in the West. But the Iranians will not let them back into the country, the IAEA inspectors, until they feel satisfied about security. And that may never happen again, because when the West supports bombing Iran, when the Israeli regime was striking nuclear sites, which could have led to contamination, radioactive contamination, and a catastrophe, Western regimes were all saying Israel has the right to defend itself. Just like when it's carrying out the genocide in Gaza, the Holocaust in Gaza, they say Israel has the right to defend itself. When it's bombing apartment blocks in Beirut, they say Israel has the right to defend itself. So when Western regimes behave like that, when the International Atomic Energy Agency's chief refuses to condemn attacks on Iran's peaceful nuclear program, then why should Iran ever allow them in? So I think that this was a huge defeat for the United States. A, they no longer have access to the nuclear program. They no longer have information about the nuclear program. B, even those segments of Iranian society that were considered to be liberal and Western-oriented, and who believed a lot of the propaganda coming from the Western-owned Persian media, their worldview has changed. The Western narrative in Iran is broken. No one trusts the West anymore. People have seen how the West targets women and children, how CNN and Fox News are the same. When the CNN may hate Trump, but when they kill Iranians, when the Zionists kill Iranians, they're all the same. Breitbart and the New York Times, they're all the same. And this, I think, is a major catastrophe for U.S. influence in Iran, because they've united the people, they've woken up a younger generation who did not see the revolution or the imposed war that the West imposed on Iran. And now that is going to make things much more difficult for the United States in the months ahead. And finally, if the Israeli regime does strike Iran again, it will get a battering worse than before, because the Israelis gave it their best shot. And we have to keep in mind, what the Israeli regime has is the best technology that the West has to offer, far better than anything that has ever been given to Ukraine. And now the Iranians are learning about their weaknesses and about their enemy strengths. And the Iranians are swiftly going to prepare themselves for the next round. So hopefully, if the Israeli regime is stupid enough and foolish enough to attack Iran again, hopefully the next round will be the knockout blow for Iran, defeating the Israeli regime.
And yet, with your former hat of Professor of American Studies on, you must have been amazed at the result in New York yesterday with the election of a left-wing, a socialist, explicitly socialist, albeit of the American kind, Muslim, albeit of the American kind. But the Israel lobby threw absolutely everything at that young man of, I think, 33 years old. There's nothing they didn't say about him, his faith, his ideas. The billions were deployed by Bloomberg and others, and the entire imperialist media in the United States were all concentrating their fire on this young man who emerged victorious. What does that tell you?
I think it shows that the United States is changing and that people are waking up, even though in the second round, I'm pretty sure that these Democrats will join the Republicans to stop him. But whether he becomes mayor or not, this is a major defeat for the Zionists and for the neocons and the establishment. Young people across the United States are waking up. George, you cannot hide a genocide forever. People will wake up. They'll see what's happening. They see the reality on the ground. For 21 months, they've been carrying out a genocide. And then they try to distract people's attention away by demonizing Iran. We saw all the Western media suddenly attack Iran. And despite the fact that Iran has been demonized for 4.5 decades, people didn't take the bait. People didn't believe it. People continue to support Iran and oppose U.S. aggression. They no longer believe the nonsense that the West has been putting out against Iran, or these Arab oil and gas-rich dictators who've been using their media to promote sectarianism and racism and religious hatred. People are no longer believing this. It's changing. It will take time, and I don't know if he will be the mayor, and if he does become the mayor, if he will remain true to what are his principles today. But it is a sign of change. We see young Christians, Jews, Muslims, and Hindus, the young lady at MIT who made that fantastic speech in defense of the Palestinian people, they're bringing about change. And that's why, as I've said before, even though we're living in very, very dark times and very, very dangerous times, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And these young people, guided by those who are older and who understand the history of empire, hopefully they'll bring about a situation ultimately where we can live more comfortably with one another and protected by the rule of law, rather than the empire lashing out at whoever it wants, whenever it wants.
Will we hear from the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, tomorrow? We haven't heard from him yet.
I don't know if we're going to hear from him tomorrow, but he is so popular now. People across the country are so thankful for his leadership and the way in which from the very beginning he stood his ground and told the people that we are going to win this war. And people across the world are now turning to him. People from across the region, despite the attempts of for decades, to create sectarian and racist and religious hatred, people are looking to him as the person who defeated the empire, who defeated Zionism, and who continues to support the Palestinian people. And hopefully he and others will continue this resistance until ultimately the Israeli regime has been defeated like the apartheid regime in South Africa. The only way for peace in this region ultimately is for the end of supremacism, is for the dismantling of ethno-supremacism, and for equality among all people in Palestine. And the fact is that these foolish and bloodthirsty Zionists, if they were sane, they would recognize that this would be to their benefit.